All right, here we go. Hey everyone, it's Oli Morales um, of the blog Courage to Create, but also soon to be on the show Shared Space. So let me ask. So this is my guest Isis. Can I ask you where's the link to the?
The link to the current live stream is right here. And then the live stream chat's also there. It should be coming up. Just a second. It may be taking a moment to get to live. Stream health good. Why is it taking a second? Sorry. Slight difficulties, but there we go. Everything's up and running. And there's the link.
All right, guys. So some of you guys are new to both of us. Forgive us as we try to set up this. I'm going to post it. I'm posting it.
Okay.
We're just going with the flow. Thank you, Isis, for helping me with this.
Oh, no problem. Just doing what I can to help.
So for those of you guys who are joining me for my face, let's give them a little moment to join, because I know some people they're like, what's going on? So let's give people a moment to join us, and I don't know if you're seeing the comments, Isis. I don't see comments.
Oh,
but if
I
you
just
do,
wrote, hey, chat.
No.
Let's see.
Huh? So I'm gonna just go. So sorry if I'm saying this again for some of you guys who are watching, but I want to welcome everyone. This is our preview show for Shared Space, which is going to be a show for those of you guys who don't know that I want to do for people who are awakening in the world. There's awakening going on for those of you guys who are not aware. What is the awakening? It just means that this is the way, again, this is my truth, the way that I understand it. My experience is that we're one collective being. We're one soul, and we're awakening to that fact. We're not actually individual, separate people. Now, we each have our unique energies and our unique truths and to contribute. So we still have our own, I don't know if identity is the right word, but we have our own essence that no one can duplicate. But at the same time, we're very much interconnected. And as each day goes by, I personally, we'll talk about it today, feel the energies accelerating at a very rapid rate. And I see more and more people, even people I thought would never be more spiritual or more awakened, start to be more open to it. And so my first guest is Isis. Say hi, Isis.
Hello.
For those of you guys who joined us a little earlier, sorry for the technical difficulties. This is a preview show, so we're testing things out, and so thank you, Isis, for helping me test things out. For those of you guys watching, we're sort of, basically, if you have a YouTube account, I am told, you can make a comment. So we encourage you guys to make comments, and Isis will let me know if you guys have questions or comments to contribute. But I want to begin. Well, first of all, I want to begin for those of you who don't know me. I'm Oli Morales. I've really been in the public for about 8 years writing a blog, Courage to Create. And it started off about writing, but as the universe, sometimes things happen and you don't expect it. And I began to realize that, I was writing this blog about writing a fiction novel, and it turns out that the blog was the novel, and the novel was writing me. The universe creator was telling its own story, using me as his character. And about 3 years ago, I uncovered. Well, first of all, and I have to share this because it is important. I know some people, and we'll talk about this. Some people misunderstand it. understand me when I share this. But it's my truth. 3 years ago, I reached this state that some people call enlightenment, where I really woke up, and it was a blissful, wonderful, peaceful state. And again, this is a show about being authentic. Sometimes I don't share that because some people react in a way that they think I'm saying I'm better than them. They act strangely, But I want people to know that for me, it was kind of anticlimactic because I realized in that moment that we are all already enlightened. It's not about some place we need to go or some other person we need to be. It's about us being who we are in the now moment and trusting what is arising as the thing we need to address or process or heal. And that's what I came to understand, that it's not some 100-year struggle to get to enlightenment. Anyways, I had that blissful experience. Some of you guys know that story. I've shared it before. And not too long after, I started getting visitations from these spirits, which I realized were the guardian angels. Well, some people call them guardian angels. Now, there are some people who don't like the term angel. That's okay. You don't have to call it that. You can call it higher self, spirit guide. A lot of what I want to talk about today is really being okay with that. Being okay with, some terms you may not like and you may choose other terms. That's okay. As long as we're sharing our truths. I personally don't mind it. I don't think Isis minds it either. But to me, that's what I'm calling it, guardian angel. And so for the last 3 years, I've been helping people, most strangers from all over the world, connect with their guardian angel. And it's been miraculous, and it's been wonderful and beautiful and powerful and life-changing. It totally upended my world. It really did. And today, I want Isis to share her experience as well with this after I'm finished. That's why I'm kind of starting with my experience. But, it really does. And so I want to talk a little bit about how it's changed my world and what that's like. But throughout the experience, I met a lot of souls, people, humans, who there's a pattern, which is that many of them felt alone, lonely, isolated, because they were awakening, they were realizing they had these supernatural gifts, and people around them, they were not able to believe them, understand them, support them in the way they needed. Sometimes it's not even that people around them were negative or mean. It just they couldn't connect with them. We're going to talk a lot today about energy and stuff, and anyway, so I wanted to create shared space as a place for people who are waking up and want, basically, number one, for friendship, connection, to feel less crazy, less alone, but also, many of you have very special gifts that you're feeling wanting to share, because so many of you, and this is what's beautiful about this experience, I met so many of you who just really want to give and help and heal the world, and it's so sweet, and it's so hard. It was so hard for me to learn that so many of you felt isolated and alone. And I know when I started, I felt alone, so I understand it. But after a while, I would reach out to people. I'd make friends, and now actually I feel very supported, and I don't feel alone. But I want to create this show. It's going to be a weekly show, and the official date I'll mention at the end. I want to create this show so that all of you have the opportunity to feel supported. I mean, that's the bottom line. Curse Create, my blog that I started 8 years ago, was really about me. It was a selfish thing, which is okay. At the time, that's what I needed. But this is very about the collective. It's about all of us, and I really want it to be about all of us. So as I talk to Isis, guys, if something resonates, if you have a question, a comment, feel free to do so. Isis, you let me know. I wish I could have been that person to look at the comments, but since I can't access it,
you can
do that. But
you can look at it on the YouTube. It's open. It'll just be on a window on the right-hand side of it.
Okay, so usually on a traditional talk show, the host will give an intro. And I decided I'm going to try not to do that because, number one, I have found that it's always good to give the other person the opportunity to introduce themselves, because in the end, you know your energy, right? You know who you are, and there's certain things that you think also there's certain things that just arise in the moment that you feel like you need to share. So to me, I'm wanting to kind of step aside and just allow whatever you want to share with the audience, Isis, about your journey, about who you are, about your identity, or maybe you don't call it identity. Um, I'm just giving you a chance to be your authentic true self and share with us, yeah, who you are. If you want, you can share that thing you wrote. For me, if you feel like it, if not, it's okay. But I thought that was really a cool thing. So, so yeah.
Okay. Hey y'all, I'm Isicera. I'm the person whose YouTube page this is all being hosted on at the moment, and I'm also a spiritual worker. Um, I actually came from more of that atheistic perspective a long while back, where I was one of those people that if I heard a term like angel, I would be like, what's this? This is non-scientific and irrational and all of this, and I was just so frustrated with what at the time I understood to be irrational behavior. But then over time, the universe started giving me little pokes and was like, hey, there may actually be more going on than you're aware of. And I continued to keep my eyes closed to it for a long time. And then it poked me a little harder and a little harder. And it's like, okay, maybe I need to be aware of some of this stuff because it wants me to be aware of it. So,
How old were you?
Oh, let's see. Well, I had prophetic dreams probably starting around when I was 19 or 20, but then I kind of just like blew them off, being like, statistically, it's likely that there will be some correlation in between dream patterns and just pattern reading in general, so it's a thing. And then I was like, okay, maybe there's a little more to this. It actually came about for me when I'd been playing video games professionally a while back, and thinking about the systems of the game got me to think about the systems of my own mind. And I went into the process of thought optimization and learning how I think and why I think how I think and how I could think better. And going into that process paired with trying to understand what was going on with all of my dreams and other things helped me come to the place where I realized, hey, there are other things going on in the universe, and it's possible for all of us to be so much more supported than we're letting ourselves be right now. So
and you were in California at the time? Or?
Oh, yes, I've been in California my whole life. It's been a very nourishing space for me. I've had challenges as well, but like I'm very grateful for being here in California.
The Bay Area.
Yeah. Northern California, the Bay, it's a great place to be, and also that it has its challenges, especially as the levels of gentrification become more and more intense, and a lot of people who were artists who are kind of making it are no longer able to make it and are moving out to farther areas. Like it, how the socioeconomic things are interfacing with people who are able to create and share their spirit is it definitely has an impact on here in a pretty extreme way in comparison with lots of other places. But let's see. Oh, my spiritual path. Oh, energy. So what my energy feels like. My energy feels a little different from anything else that I've encountered. My energy is the path of being both sacred prey and divine predator. It's the path of infinite growth, pioneered by neoplasms and the expansion of space-time. It is the ascension of the relationship between that which consumes and that which is consumed, transforming from the destruction of prey by predator to mutual growth and benefit for all beings. It's the refraction of all that is through the base component of hunger itself. That hunger to consume everything, every plant, every animal, every human, every city, every planet, every galaxy, every supercluster. That hunger flowing through a deep channel of love for all that is consumed. Using metabolism as a pathway between limited incarnation and dispersion through space-time, where the gifts and wisdom of all beings that are consumed can bless everyone everywhere, transforming the experience of prey into the pure euphoria of being the gift that they are, shared with the world, living through how it feels, living how through it makes all lives better. I am the growth that comes from this, the abundance that fills all of reality. Fields, fat, fractals, flesh. I am mutually beneficial, consent-based omnivorism, devouring all, blessing all, being devoured by all, and blessing all. So that's kind of what my energy feels like. I'm very in tune with the cycle.
Let me just explain, put in context.
Yes.
So that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So what Isis was sharing, guys, is she's just describing her energy. Mm-hmm. Really beautiful. I did one too, which I think after yours I won't read it because yours is a lot more better than mine. But maybe later on I'll do it.
Interrupt you here for just a moment.
This came out of conversation.
Yours is not worse in any way. All of us speak in different ways, and that's part of the wisdom that you were sharing in this group, is that all of us have our different ways of connecting with the truth, and each of them is beautiful.
Good point. Thank you, Isis. See, aren't you guys loving Isis? So wonderful. You're right. Thank you for bringing that up. That's very important. I absolutely agree. But I wanted to give a context because me and Isis were talking. She's a friend of mine. We met through a mutual friend, Amanda, who's a lovely person. Was it like a year ago or 2 years ago? Time flies so quickly. Anyways, we've been in conversation, and recently she was sharing that, she's looking for connection, the kind of thing that we're trying to create and foster on shared space. And I don't know where it came from. It just occurred to me. I said, well, why don't you describe your energy, and I'll see if I know someone, who matches it. And then so she sends me what she just read to you, and I was like, whoa, and I was like, you should share this. And I thought it was so powerful. And then I thought to do one myself. And so I'm going to read mine. And thanks, guys, for joining. This is our little workshopping of the show. So, we're just going with the flow here. So some of you guys are like, what's going on? What do they do? We're totally just playing. We're just having fun with the spirits, with the energy, see what comes through. But I feel, so anyone have any comments about Isis and her description of her energy? Please share. If you were inspired by what she just shared, I want you all to share how your energy feels like. The reason why this is a powerful exercise, I know what you think, Isis, but it's because we're talking about usually something that's invisible. Usually we talk about, I want to meet someone who's, 5'4" and blue eyes or whatever. And in truth, what really matters is what Isis is talking about, the energy, right? That's really who we are. It's our soul, right? Our physical appearance is part of that. It's a beautiful part of it, but it's not our totality. So I'm going to share so that inspired me then to write my own description of my energy. So I'm going to share that with you guys. And we're doing this, again, shared space. I want you all to do this too, because as you see when you do it, it's actually quite healing, just doing it. Very simple. But there's something about it that's beautiful, because it's like, how often do we do this? How often do we share what we feel our energy feels like? Most of the time people are trying to avoid speaking of the energy or how things are feeling, because we say, how are you? I'm happy, I'm good. You're not good, right? Especially if many of you guys are empathic, right? You may encounter what I encounter. I ask people how they're feeling, they say I'm good, but I can feel that they're not, right? So there's no opportunity for them to really share how they're truly feeling, because we have this cultural tendency to want to cover up our energy, our true energy. So by doing this, we're sort of subverting that, right? We're sort of sharing actually how we're truly feeling, being honest. So it's quite beautiful. So this is my energy. I wrote this and I shared it on my Facebook for those of you who follow me on Facebook. My energy feels like a happy puppy dog who wants everyone to play and be excited and feel the belonging and joy that I feel. But when I go out into this world, it's hard for my inner puppy dog. I've heard some people describe themselves as feeling as if they are an alien on a foreign planet and this is not their home. I feel these. I know, and I feel very human, but the cruelty shocks and alarms me. Even at age 32, I find myself not able to comprehend why some people act and behave the way they do. I felt as if the Earth houses many humans, but it also houses many people who look like humans, but are truly not here, are truly not human. I believe and know they are biologically human, but I often wonder about their heart and soul. I love giving and healing and laughing and the thrill of romance and being playful, but I find others seem only focused on making optimistic, positive people feel terrible. And yet I have found the most positive, optimistic people have had the saddest stories. As positive people, we respect and appreciate the power of positivity and self-love to get us through the darkness. My energy feels balanced and grounded and joyful. My energy feels free and empowered. My energy feels on purpose, light, and truthful. My energy feels ready to stand up for itself and ready to hold people accountable if they believe it's okay to treat me like a doormat. My energy feels excited and full and grateful and fulfilled in the past. But I'll be honest, my energy is concerned for the lonely and the broken and the beaten down. My energy keeps me going to help those who need my help and ignore those who are cruel to me and who may look human and be biologically human, but whose heart and soul are foreign to this motherhood. I refuse to give in. I will transmute your cruelty into the power to keep going forward and heal the good people of this earth. Comments, guys? Feel free to comment on that. Let me know what you guys feel. If Isis, if you see anything, do share. Yeah, it felt very powerful to do that. And the reason why I did it is because I noticed, and you can tell me, Isis, how you felt. When you shared that with me, I felt like it felt really good for you, right? To do that, to write that.
Oh yeah, I'm really a big fan of exploring greater clarity and anything that helps me understand myself and just like, oh, what are these new, like, it's almost like getting a new kind of mirror where you've only seen yourself in certain ways, then you're seeing something from another perspective. And exercises like that where you're able to just really delve into how the energy that you're built out of feels and what flows through you is something that I feel is really nourishing and really informative as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the energy, it's like, you wrote your energy, but also felt the energy when you shared it. And so it felt to me like it had empowered you in some form. And so I wanted to feel that way. And so I did, I shared it, and it felt very empowering. And, one of the things that I feel like, the angels say that us doing this kind of conversation gives permission for others to have this type of conversation in public. A lot of times these conversations happen in private, right? One-on-one in little, in dark rooms. Well, not dark, not in public and by help, so people can see us, right, and comment and interact. Really is powerful healing for the collective. And so I really appreciate you. It always takes courage to share any creative thing or anything about oneself. So I applaud you for that courage. And anyway, so just to wrap that part of it out, I really do want people, perhaps you don't want to share it publicly, that's okay. But if you're watching and you're inspired by this little exercise, really encourage it. It'll make you feel really good. And I think it really will help clarify then what kind of energy you want in terms of friendship or professional or partner, right? Who matches that frequency. So let's go back, Isis, to your story, because I think it's very healing. It's funny because I always am like, who wants to hear my story? And people will tell me, like, no, we want to hear your story. So I want to hear a little bit more about your story. Specifically about when you were starting. You said in 1920, right? Did you have family? How did people support you, or did you feel like you were the only one experiencing this?
Let's see. I was in a romantic relationship with someone, or I was at the very tail end of a romantic relationship with someone who was very, what I've heard a lot of people in the spiritual community refer to as scientistic, which is prioritizing science to the point that they will ignore stimulus about anything that doesn't fall into that scientific realm. And so I had really internalized a lot of her views about the world, and that had been a bit intense. But people in my immediate life were actually incredibly supportive, and most folks were actually far more spiritually inclined than I was at the time, because they weren't necessarily practicing and really delving into it, but they were much more open to it than I was. So at first it felt more like I was going towards a central space, because everyone was like, yeah, I could believe in something. I don't really know much about any of this, but I have some beliefs or some feelings. And then I came to be like, oh, well, I would like to understand these beliefs and feelings and connect with these things and communicate more clearly, because my understanding of spirituality is there's a constant communication going on between spirit, the universe, whatever you want to call the higher format of wisdom that we could all access, and us, and learning how to communicate and listen effectively to what it's saying, and being able to communicate effectively what our needs and wants and desires and how, and just like goals and things that we want to contribute, and ways that we are passionate about embracing the world. Like finding out how to communicate those with spirit is part of the path, and how I understand it to function. So most
So
of my
did you have a teacher? Did you have a book? Was it just you were guided by spirit? I think it's helpful because I think some people they want to have a sense of they're not alone, right? Like, you know. So I think it's helpful to share like what was it that was drawing you? Was it an internal thing, something arising within you? Was it a book? Was it a specific teacher that brought this out on you?
For the most part, I was internal guidance is how I got started, where it was just like, I really want to understand what's going on with me, and none of the resources that I had been aware of in my social circles told me anything about it. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to listen to myself. What am I going to do in this process of listening to myself? Part of it was definitely supported by working with medicinal tools like cannabis in order to open myself in areas where I was previously very closed off. In addition, I ended up later kind of attracting teachers and books and things into my life, like just existing out in the world. I had been contacted by someone, and they were like, I would like you to be the fire witch for this trans coven. And it was like, I don't know anything about being a witch. I had never channeled the element of fire. I was like a complete neophyte to this, but they just like found me based off my energy, and through that, I ended up.
I said to some people listening to this, I know I did too. They may have a negative stereotype of the term witch and coven.
Oh, okay.
I know just for example, I now have a positive view of witch, but recently I told a woman, I said, you have such a beautiful witch energy. And she was offended by it. She said, no, I'm not a witch. She took it negatively. So can you define like what does that mean for you? Because I know a lot of people, they see it as a derogatory term. I discovered this because I was trying to give a positive compliment to someone, and she was not. So how do we understand witch?
My perspective of witch, like all words are contextual. In this specific context, I was brought into this coven in a way where connecting with being a witch was about consciously embracing magic and being able to channel it effectively, understand what's going on, and not just kind of flail in spiritual realms, but actually like set clear intentions and be in a space where you're intentionally using magic instead of subconsciously using magic. Because I'm a person who believes that all people are spiritual, just some people are spiritual and kind of asleep to the fact that spirit's flowing through them, and other people are totally awake to the fact that it's flowing through them. And it's like, oh, I could work with these tools in a conscious way, or they could flow through me. Just like breathing. When you breathe, the default state for breathing for most people is unconscious, where it's going and it's happening on its own, and it's going on, but you don't really need to think about it. But then there are people who will be like, oh, I would like to intentionally breathe in a practice like yoga. And then they take that unconscious action and work with it in a conscious way. And based on that, are able to get all kinds of results, which could be helpful for them and those around them.
So basically, we're all witches. We just don't.
A witch is someone who is conscious of their own witchiness. Everyone has the capability to do witchcraft. It's just a matter of like being conscious and intentional.
And so I gotta say, I'm sure some people are watching this and they have a view that is, it's not about, because I was talking about sometimes it's used as derogatory towards women, but some people who view witch as somebody who creates negative things, dark magic and spells, like negative spells, right? So for those people who are watching, what would you say to them? Because I'll say for myself, I've understood. I don't, that's not how I wouldn't call myself a witch or say that I'm involved in those circles, but I do know people who are, and there's a lot of positivity there. And I agree with you in terms of it really depends on the context and how you use the term and how you use your power. I just see it as very interesting. A lot of people who connect with spirit very different ways. So to me, I just see that's a different way to connect with spirit. But there are people watching who may be afraid, right? From the way they grew up, somebody told them that was bad and negative and whatever. So what do you have to say to that? I mean, is that something that you have opinion on, I guess?
A few opinions, actually. I understand that there has been a connection between the unknown and fear for a very long time because there's risk in what we aren't able to understand. And witches have a tendency to work with things that the majority of the population does not understand. So quite a while back, there grew to be a stigma of these people working with strange things that weren't understood, just like early on there was stigma around astronomers who were saying what the movement of the planets would be, because it's just like, oh, people are saying these things and we don't understand why they're saying them or how they're understanding them. They must be getting their information from some dark source. And that's not terribly accurate. In general, people are getting their information either through some source that I don't consider to be either dark or light or anything. It's just like, it is awareness, being present and clear and observant of what's flowing through. I understand that some people will think of witchcraft as a negative thing. I don't personally use witch as the primary way I describe myself. I've had other people use that as a primary term for describing me, but I just like to say that I'm a spirit worker, an artist of spirit. But I would recommend for anyone who is interested in having a greater understanding of witchcraft, looking up things around like the reclaiming movement and Wicca and other folks who take this very seriously and are organized and have lots of information that's out there and available and have communicated about it far more effectively than I have. Most of the witches that I've encountered are people who are very interested in the magic that flows through life and land itself and are connected with the elements and are very much base their magic on more of what flows through this world. So I don't think there's any negative polarity that needs to be attached to a witch for any reason.
So, this is guys. If you guys are joining us, please leave your comments and questions for us. I really believe that, and I want to segue now into really what I want to talk about today, which is very important. So, thank you so much for sharing your story, Isis. Now, I really want to talk about, because it's perfect for this, because I think one of my experiences through doing the work that I do is you do encounter a situation. For instance, to me, what you said is valid, and I respect your truth, right? But there may be someone out there who, even though you said that, witches are positive, they're here to heal, to help, they may say, no, I don't care what you say, what you believe, what you know to be true. Witches are evil and they're bad and covens are bad, right? So what I want to talk about today is, can we, you know, can we move towards a place where perhaps we have terms and words that have baggage, like witch, right? Can we let go of our baggage surrounding it and just listen to the person, right? Listen to the person, feel their energy, get to know them, understand where they're coming from, and trust and believe, right, in their approach. You know, one thing I'll keep learning, and I'll tell a little bit about my journey here just to give context. I grew up Catholic, became an atheist for several years, and just like if I had heard someone speaking to angels, back then I would have thought it was made up, it wasn't true. Would have thought it was like a hokey, right? But then I was, after a while, I went through some supernatural experiences, and it was proven to me that angels do exist, But even still today, and I'm not even talking about atheists or religious folk, other spiritual people, I'll tell them I connect with angels, and these are people who maybe are witches or maybe are connect with other nature spirits, and they'll say, "Well, I don't believe in angels, but I believe in nature spirits," or and I find that interesting, right? Because it's kind of like, well, you don't have to believe what I believe, you don't have to agree with me, but I think it's a sign of respect if you recognize that I believe what I believe, and this is my truth. You may not agree with the terminology of angel or archangel. I love using those terms, but you don't have to agree with that. But at the same time, you have to respect that that's my truth and that's terminology I'm using. So, any thoughts about that, of how we can, especially in the spiritual community, right, where, as you said, sometimes you feel alone, right? So, like, what would you, perhaps this question is better asked, what would you prefer about the way people interact with the terminology you use or how you speak your truth? What would you want to hear from others?
Let's see. As far as syntax is concerned, I definitely have that experience of talking to different spiritual people and having them wildly question each other just because the type of language they're using to describe the exact same phenomena is wildly different. It's like, but both of you are working with very similar energies. Why is this confrontation coming up? But the way I interpret it, as opposed to a truth perspective, I don't like to make statements on what's true or what's not true, but I do like to say that people have an experience and their experience is valid regardless of what's going on. They have an interpretation of that experience. There could be things about that interpretation that I disagree with, or there could be plenty of things about the interpretation I do agree with, but I will never state that the person did not have an experience. I just may disagree with how they interpret it. So I think that's one of the important things to keep in mind, is that no matter how much you agree or disagree with a person, they are having the experience they are having, and that is the way they are experiencing it, and experience is subjective. There's no way for you to say, oh, this isn't what you're experiencing. You could say, like, I don't think that the way you're understanding this experience is the way that I understand it. Here's how I understand it. Let's come to greater mutual understanding. But I don't like the people telling each other what their experiences are, especially based on the context that we live in this society where colonizers have been doing that for a long time, where it's like, oh, you people who lived here before us, you have this experience that you're experiencing, and we're going to tell you that it's, instead of that, you need to understand that experience from the perspective of this specific faith or this specific thing, and that's the only way to understand this. And I don't think that's an incredibly helpful way for people to collaborate and generate value for all of us. So I forget, what was the other part of your question? I think I tangented a little bit there.
No, I don't think you did. I think that was answering my question in completion. And what I wanted to say is, this is a conversation, guys. It's going to be very different than my blog because my blog is just my thoughts, right? But the show there's no ending to it, right? So like as we're speaking, I just want to have a conversation. In the end, the wording, right, the way we like that's going to be as a collective, we get to decide what happened.
Oh, no, I remembered more about what I wanted to say around my specific syntax, because I have really weird syntax, but I'll do that after you say what you have to say.
Well, I'm going to say that the job that we're doing is as a collective, all of us deciding together, right, like how we approach this. So my job as a host of the show, I think, is really to start the dialogue, not to say this is the way we should do it. Mm-hmm. So as I use my language, right, it gets a little, right, messy, guys, but that's what it is when you have these difficult conversations, like, right, it's going to be a bit messy. So I'm using the word my truth because of the lack of a better term, right? But I'm hoping people understand because I experience what you do, Isis, too, where people are pointing fingers and saying you're doing this and don't do this. Really, I agree with you where I feel like, well, but you guys are both wonderful, beautiful healers helping people. You just use different words, and people get caught up in this, Carolyn Miss says, we play word games, right? We get caught up in the word, the terminology, when in the end, it's about connecting with the energy. So I think one of the things I want to do with Share Space is like my intention is to keep it simple. The energy that I want to connect with is love. So whatever is loving, healing, helping, that's what I want to draw in here. Whatever the specific terminology, it's going to be different for each person. And for some of you out here, you may disagree with which. That's okay, but don't take that away from Isis or try to judge or criticize her because she's using a term that you don't like. Like in the end, it's like that's her term, right? And to me, as long as I don't know if you agree with this, as long as someone is helping people and bringing love, I don't really care the terminology that is being used. Anyways, go ahead.
I do have some thoughts on that. That as far as not caring the terminology that's used, I want to find ways to effectively synchronize terminology because obviously they've gotten something figured out, and I would like to figure out how to integrate the things I've figured out and the things they've figured out in the way that's most accessible to the most people, and finding what parts of their syntax are more effective at connecting with different people. So, because sometimes they'll be saying something that I'm saying, but they're saying it in a way that connects with more people's hearts and more people's minds in an easier way for them to digest. So I'm like, oh, wait, like the way you're saying this is so much more accessible. Thank you. As for my personal syntax, I know that my personal syntax is very terrifying for a lot of people, as I've had folks search me out on the internet to harass me because of some of the weird stuff that I say and all of that kind of jazz. And I get why it's scary. All of the language and experience that is built around consumption in our society is really attached to dark things, especially like beings that consume other beings in a conscious way. Like it's, in general, the levels of taboo that are most universally reviled in our society is cannibalism. So when someone uses a word like I'm a predator, it is something that reaches into a deep fear and terror in a lot of people because it's just every single exposure to that term they've gotten has been something incredibly negative. I come from the perspective that even though these terms can really sound scary, and I agree that they can, that finding out actually what the origin of their meaning is, as opposed to this cultural zeitgeist and how we currently understand them, I think of it, or my desire to consume, I think of it a lot like how I think of being queer and being trans, where it's like, yes, being trans is a term that some people will just be like, oh, that immediately engenders this negative feeling in me, and I do not appreciate that. But I feel that embracing in me, like, yes, I am a trans woman. I was born with I was assigned a different gender than is accurate to me when I was born, and because of that, I clearly will identify myself as a trans woman, and that is something that will be scary for people. Just like when I say, oh, my spiritual energy connects with devouring, that will also be scary for people. But I feel that normalizing some of the language that is scary and helping people understand why it doesn't need to be scary is part of the journey.
Yeah, it's so interesting because when I read your description, it didn't trigger anything scary. I thought it was cool. I was like, this is so cool. But I do know that, for instance, when I've experienced this, that's why I've shared it with people. When I use angel or archangel, there are some people who have come to me and said, this really triggers a lot of, because I'm not Catholic. I was raised Catholic, but I have come to the conclusion that angel is the best term. I used to use spirit guide, but I just have come to understand that really that's the best term that most people connect with. They really understand what I'm meaning. It's the closest, you know. But there are people who come to me and they said, this just triggers a lot of, pain and hurt because I was raised in a religious household and I equate angel and all that stuff that reminds me of oppression, right? And of course, that's not my intention. I don't want to trigger people's, history with some kind of religious abuse. But so what I have done and what I try to do is I try to express to people, what does angel mean to me? What does the energy of angelic guidance mean? There's still some folks too who they believe in angels, they grew up, they're Catholic, and they're still terrified of angels, even though they know they're good.
Well,
it's again
the ones
the unknown.
That are written about in the Bible are kind of scary.
Well, I've had to tell people, because my experience is they're super positive. None of them are negative. They're all here to help, and they would never do anything harmful. But again, it's what you're saying. It's like these terms. I guess what I want to say is, like, we have to be able to have a conversation where it's a bit messy, where I might use some terms and you might not like them. Okay, let's talk about that. Why do you not like it? How do we talk? That's what share space I want it to be, that we really stop pointing at one another, that you're using the wrong terms, like that kind of friction, and say what you're saying, which is like, let's just talk about it. Like what you said, which I thought was beautifully said. What if the way that I'm speaking isn't really helpful to the collective? I'm open to hearing what terminology works for you. And so for me, I can share. There was a period of time in college where I got rid of all my Catholic stuff. I threw away my cross, my communion Bible, which is like, and I was like, this is false. I was so mad because I was so convinced that the entire religious structure were all in on the game, right? They created this fake, thing just to profit off of the gullible masses. That's sort of where my thought was at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got rid of all this stuff. And so the idea of angel and all that stuff, saints, I thought that was all false, not true. And so I'm not really shocked or surprised that some people have, certain reactions to the terminology, because there was a period of time where I kind of got rid of it. I stripped away from it. And it took me many, many years. I read the Tao Te Ching, I read the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, the Kabbalah, the Quran. Like, I read all the different spiritual texts, and you learn through that experience. And I encourage people, if you guys are on this journey, maybe this conversation for you is the first conversation you've ever had where you connected spiritually. And maybe you were raised atheist and none of it ever connected to you. And as me and Isis are talking, you're having a connection. I want you to feel excited about that and thrilled. And if this is your first encounter, I want to encourage you to explore and to trust your intuition and your gut and to really connect with what resonates with you and the terminology. So I don't want this to be a sense of, here's Isis's terminology, everyone adopt it. That's not what she would want, and neither would me. It's like, this is about you guys all choosing what works for you, what resonates for you, that's really what shared space is going to be about. And I want to sort of wrap this up with, I want to let you say one last thing, Isis, before we wrap it up. But I just wanted to, kind of conclude there and saying, this is about creating a conversation where there's no kind of like end agreement, right? Like I don't want people to go away where you guys feel like you have to agree with us or feel like our way of doing things is the right way and we're trying. No, I want people to just be encouraged to have your own conversations with your own friends or family. But also, if you're feeling lonely and you're feeling people are not around you, know that there are people out there, us, but there are many people, and hopefully I'll introduce you throughout the months ahead as I keep working on this show. By the way, feedback, please give me feedback. I really want to know what's useful, what's not. I want to always be improving. But like I want people to feel like they can have these conversations and they're not alone. That's my intention. I don't need I don't need y'all to believe me or believe I don't think ISIS really needs that either. We're looking for shared conversations, and if you feel a connection with ISIS, I know a lot of people will. There's a lot of folks out there that I'm sure I know identify with your experience, ISIS. So I really thank you for the courage of sharing it. I want to give you some chance to. I know you had something to say there, so let me give you a little chance to say that. But then I want to wrap it up so that we can.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say about the adoption of syntax and how we're not pushing for any specific one, and we probably even have disagreements on syntax ourselves. I like to think of it kind of like remix culture, where it's someone's put out a piece of music and you're like, oh, I really like this thing about this, like the way these drums flow. I really like how they work. These other things, like it's not really what's right for me, but I like how this part feels. And find the parts of what we're saying that resonate with you and be like, I'm going to integrate this. And find the parts that don't really resonate and be like, oh, actually, this gives me greater clarity on what's important to me by seeing how I diverge from these views. So I like the remix idea of like, oh yeah, take the parts of the syntax that are useful for you and feel free to combine it with any other syntax, get rid of pieces entirely, integrate other ones in, whatever ends up making the things that are most beautiful.
Thank you so much, Isis. And I know it takes great courage to share your journey, especially when it comes to, spirituality. I know that I always have to summon up my courage because you never know how people are going to react because it's very, people have very passionate views on it, as they should. But I do think that I want to hopefully create a space where we can respectfully disagree if we have to, right? We can have a passionate debate, but we still love each other, and we still are here with intention to connect and to unite the whole. So please leave your comments and questions. I'll have Isis let me know if she sees anything that could maybe be the topic of another show or whatever. I also want to invite you all to give suggestions about anyone you think would be good to have on the show. You can recommend yourself. It's really not like, this is not like any other show. I have no interest in trying to, I want people on here who, literally, my only requirement is if you come from a place of love and light, and you're awakening, come on the show. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about, that's my only interest. I have no other interest other than that. And so thank you so much, Isis. I do want to give you an opportunity, if you want to share how people can connect with you. I think that's your artwork back behind you, right?
Yes, it is. Here's some of my art, but in general, if you just search for my name, Isicera, I'm going to come up if other people don't have it. So it's I'm an artist.
For Facebook now.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, I'm on
Facebook.
Yeah. I'm on Facebook. I could put links to these things in the video description since it'll archive all of this. And
yeah, we'll figure out some way to put it. But if you search for her name on Facebook, what else?
Oh, I'm also on YouTube, of course, where this is streaming. And my art could be found on Etsy. And I also write articles on Medium. So right now, I think the best place to contact me is Facebook. And if you're interested in connecting with my artwork, it's all over, including YouTube, Facebook, etc. So.
And it's would you say it's like it's also healing, right? And spiritually healing the work.
Yes. I feel that the creative process like connects with the divine because the divine is creation itself. And being able to do healing work through the creation of art is something that has been really nourishing in my life and has also brought nourishment to other lives that I've connected with. So if you are interested in connecting with someone who creates art and flowing some of your experience and your spirit through that in order to grow and manifest and gain clarity on your path, feel free to reach out to me.
Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us. I know this was sort of like a last minute thing. Thank you for participating in workshopping. I'd love to hear your feedback. I want to just end this with some questions. I want to provoke conversations because I want this not to be an end, right? I want it to inspire you to go with your friends and talk to family or people that you love who you trust. And so I'm going to just end with some questions that you guys can share with us or share with people you know, which is, do you, as you're opening up spiritually, do you identify with which? Do you identify with these terms like coven and magic? If you're someone who's had negative experiences or negative ideas about it, what are your thoughts? How do you understand? What are your words, basically? How would you put it to understand what we're talking about today? What are words that you prefer? What's your truth, right? And also, I would say if you're someone who is very similar to Isis, someone who is an artist, or perhaps you identify with her as a trans woman, what is that like? I really want I want you to feel comfortable sharing your story with us. I'm sure Isis would love to hear it. Those intersections between your identity, I think, are always fascinating and healing, I believe. So I think I just really want if you identify with what Isa said, for you to share your experience and of course do the exercise. If you don't want to share with us, that's okay. You can do it privately, but it is powerful. What is the exercise? Just write down what your energy feels like. And just see how it makes you feel. It'll make you feel good. So thank you all for joining the Shared Space preview show. Thank you so much, Isis. Namaste.